Well, I was born in 1944.
Oh my
How about
gosh.
that one? But she wanted to see, because they actually knew, my dad and mom knew the Gaylord and Maria.
That's so crazy.
And when they were in Vermont, because they settled in Stowe, Vermont, is where they settled.
And you're going to have to repeat all of this when we're recording, okay? We're going to ask you about it. You have to repeat it.
Okay.
Okay.
And they were there for, my dad was a Girl Scout, along with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And every year they have this, what's called it's a Scout-orama.
Mm-hmm.
And they meet in different states. This particular year in 1966, they were in Stowe, Vermont. And the Von Trapps have their own lodges up there. They have their own little cottages up there. And you as a person can go there but the mom and dad are gone. But all the nieces and nephews, grandchildren, everybody live there still.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see and the Von Trapps. They were cool. So anyway, my mom and dad knew
the parents.
Yeah, knew Gaylord and Maria.
And could they really actually sing? Were they good singers?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, that's how they made a living when they came to the United States. They got a little tiny bus back then. They were little tiny buses, not big buses that we have. It's the kind of bus that I rode when I was a little girl. It was just a little tiny bus.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
one you were driving?
riding.
When you used to, then you also drive
I
buses?
drove school bus, yeah.
Okay.
For 22 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I volunteered at the school for 10. Worked as a custodian for 15.
All right. Is the audio rolling? Okay, sweet.
Okay.
Well, this is our third podcast episode, and we would like to welcome our illustrious guest, Anne Postlethwait, our guinea pig for this whole interviewing thing. So I'm really excited about this. We've already been talking about interesting stuff just in the past few minutes, so I'm really excited for this. But okay, so let's just start at the beginning, maybe. You just mentioned that you were born in 1944.
Correct. February, one hand.
February 1.
One hand.
One hand.
Okay, it was February 5th.
Gotcha. What do you remember most from your childhood?
It was a very happy. I had a mom and dad who were very happy. My mom was always involved in Girl Scouting, and we had a big woods back behind our house where we lived. And so when I had a younger sister, 2 years younger than I, and then I had two brothers that were older than I. But my sister and I would go back in the woods, and we would play the whole day and have a great time. And but I was raised as a Girl Scout. We went to church, always went to the Methodist Church, and in Ohio, because that's where I was born. And but I remember my mom and dad always being happy. When my dad came home from work, it didn't matter. He found my mother, wherever she was, and he would ask her, "How was your day?" And he would give her a hug. And so it was two parents that were happy, and in turn, and singing. My dad, when he came home from work, he came through the basement, the open basement, and he always whistled. Always whistled. So we always knew he was home. And then he would go find my mom, and how was your day? And then at the supper table, we always talked about our day. What did we all do? And then he would tell us what he did. He was a foreman at Goodyear Aerospace, and they built blimps. And so he was quite involved with lighter than air. And so it was kind of exciting to be to see the Goodyear blimps. And he had stories about the people that he worked with, and my dad was always happy and always told us good stories. And you always had to eat what was on your plate.
Yep.
And we always got our favorite meals. And my sister loved liver and onions. So back then, whenever we didn't wear pants. Back then you wore a dress. And I always made sure when I bought a dress it had pockets. So I lined my pocket when I knew it was my sister's birthday in March. I lined my pockets with the wrapper because we didn't have wax paper back then. So you got it out of the cereal box. And I lined my pocket with the wax paper. And I put the liver in the pocket.
You weren't a big fan of
No. And so after I was done eating, I went out and gave it to the dog.
I'm sure the dog loved it.
Oh, the dog just loved it, yes. Yes, so I'm happy that when Dave and I got married, he didn't like it either, so we never had to eat liver. I don't know why. It's disgusting.
So I just want to ask, growing up, you said I grew up as a Girl Scout. What was that like? Because I feel like that probably means something very different back then than it does today. Because when I think of Girl Scouts today, I primarily think of the cookies and like, I don't know what else. But
Well, we did a lot of camping. My family did a lot of camping. In fact, when I was a sophomore in high school, my father dared me. We would go camping at the Girl Scout camp like all summer. And then when we came home, I had a hard time sleeping in the bed because I was used to sleeping on the ground. But so he dared me to sleep when I was 15 outside in the tent, and I did. I slept the whole winter outside when I was a sophomore in high school.
wow.
The whole winter.
The whole winter.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
was in Ohio.
Where was that? In Ohio? So how cold did it usually get in Ohio?
It's about the same as here.
Yeah.
It was in Akron, Ohio. And but growing up, we were always involved with scouting, and we always back then, yes, you sold the cookies, but we did a lot of winter camping and a lot of hiking. I was part of a hiking organization where we hiked 17 miles a day.
Wow.
And
what age were you at that then?
I was probably 12 or 13.
Wow.
And then we always went to church camp. And then when I was 12, I accepted Christ. I went down to the lake and was baptized in the lake. And from then on, it was all uphill with God.
And that happened at church camp?
That happened at church camp, yeah. But at Girl Scout camp, I learned how to lash. You take twine and you lash boards or wood together, and you make yourself a chair, you make yourself a table. When I was 15, I went to a camp, Girl Scout camp. It was called Sangani. And when you showed up the first day, you had no food. You had to eat what was
Wow.
the roots, or
awesome.
you had to go fishing to get your food. But we were there for a week, and you didn't get, and to get water, you took a plastic bag and you put it over a bread wrapper, because we didn't have what we have today. So you took a bread wrapper and you put it over a tree limb with the leaves inside. The sun would shine on it, and it would sweat, and then that would be your water.
They didn't give you any water, and you had to get water that way?
No, well, we just learned how to get ladder. We went down to the creek back then.
Okay.
Back then, you could drink the water out
Yeah.
of the creeks and the rivers. Now you don't know what died up ahead,
Yeah.
and so you don't know what is coming down.
Yeah.
But back then, everything was clean. And but I learned how to lash. I learned how to cook on fires. I learned how to take a board and put the fish on it. You have your fire, and that would cook your fish. And I just learned how to do a lot of.
That's stuff that like I am so interested in, and I wish that I had more opportunity as a child to do that. Like I enjoy foraging, and I enjoy eating pretty much anything I can find to eat.
Right.
And like knowing what things are edible and what things are not is like such an exciting thing to me when I'm out in the woods. And I'm like, I know that plant.
Right.
And
Right.
I can eat that one.
Or you know that the sassafras tree makes great tea.
Mm-hmm.
You get the root and it makes a great tea.
Mm-hmm.
And but you just learn a lot of.
Useful skills.
Well, yes, if you had to, I don't know,
Survive outside.
survive outside of, you know, you would know how to survive.
Without
Yeah.
Walmart.
So
Yeah.
that camp that you went to where basically you had to forage for yourself.
Oh, yes.
What age was that you were there?
I was there it was called Sangani. It was a
Mhm.
wilderness camp.
Mm-hmm.
And we had leaders
Mm-hmm.
that taught you, that
But
helped us.
What age were you?
How
I
old
was
were you?
15.
15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of like, at least I haven't heard of a place like that existing today. I mean, maybe they're out there, just maybe not in the middle of Iowa, where we don't have any wilderness.
Right.
I
Well-
feel like parents would be suing.
Girl Scouting is so much different now
Yeah.
than it was back then.
Well, Boy Scouting too, even.
Yes. My father was an Air Scout, and
Mhm.
he built planes out of balsa wood. Then they connected 2 wires to the plane,
Mhm.
and the plane would be out quite a ways, and then you would have the handle, and someone would start it up, and off it would go, and here you are going around circles.
Mhm.
So Dad taught us, so you don't get dizzy, when you're flying the plane, which he all made us do, you had to make 4 points that you were going to have your eyes on. So you would look here, and you would stay there until the came over here, and then you had one here, you had one back here, and you had one here. So that as you're flying, you could do the same thing if you're on the merry-go-round at school or at someplace, you know, where you're going around circles. You just pinpoint 4 spots. You get here, when you get over here, then you turn your head, and you've got those 4 spots already pinpointed. That way you don't get dizzy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And then when the
something to
plane
know.
runs out of gas, then you get to put the plane down. But until then, you're flying the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. And
Interesting.
when I was a young girl, Dad always built the planes in the basement, so I would go down and do a little sanding with my dad and help him build the planes. My sister did not. She wasn't interested in that.
Mhm.
But I took full advantage. Back then, we had the soapbox derby. Have you ever heard of the soapbox derby?
Is it like where you take a little block of wood and you make a?
No,
that's
you
the
One
build
you
it.
ride in, right?
You build an actual car and
Okay.
you ride in it.
That's way
And
cooler than what
you
I was
go to
thinking.
and you go to what's called Derby Downs
Mhm.
in Akron, and they started you out at the top of the hill, and you was in competition with the person next to you,
Hmm.
and you rode down, and then once a year they had a competition for children that came all over the United States to Derby Downs.
Hmm.
And then they would have the car that goes the fastest. They're the ones that win. But I helped my brothers build their cars because we were always involved in
Mhm.
that. But Girl Scouting was a big thing back when I was growing up, and you learned a lot of. I mean, I got all the badges you could possibly get. I earned all the way to the top.
Mhm.
It was called the curved bar at that time.
Hmm.
So I have the curved bar, and I still have my sash and all my badges, and I still have you start out as a brownie,
Mhm.
and I have my brownie uniform, and I have my Girl Scout uniform. And So, yeah.
So something I've wondered about with like kids and outdoor is like I really enjoy hiking, though there's not a ton of places to do it around here. But what do you think? What's like the earliest that you should try and take a kid on a long hike?
My father started us out at 5. And whenever our cousins came along, they always complained because it was hot. And they wanted to go sit down because, I mean, they weren't used to walking or being involved. And, but yeah, I would say 8 years old, 9 years old is a great time, but you have to start them off slow, walking, and then as you build it up, then you get stamina.
Yeah.
And then you have to teach that child that they have to have a hat on, they have to have sunglasses, they have to have water, good shoes, no flip-flops, no croc. We didn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Josh and I were, when we were planning for Gwen, and I said, we have to get an umbrella stroller. And he said, for what? And I said, well, if we go to the zoo, then we can push her around. And he said, well, if she's about that big, then she can walk. And I was like, kids can't walk around at the zoo. You got to push them. They're going to get so tired. But you're saying, yes, they can.
Yeah, you have to start them off. You got to, you know, it's anything. If you wanted to start running a marathon, you couldn't just start run the marathon. You have to build yourself up.
Yeah.
And that's the way kids are. Plus, you have to give them the attitude that this is fun. This is fun. And my dad always whistled. He always sang. And so he always made it like it was work, but you're having fun.
So it's the mindset.
Yeah, it's the mindset. That's the way your whole life will be. Because just doing dishes is not fun.
Yeah.
But if you interact with your sister and you're singing the Girl Scout songs, and then it becomes fun. And you don't even know it. You're having fun.
Seems like that's a lesson that you've carried throughout your whole life, that life should be fun. I think that is a really important lesson that a lot of people aren't learning today. I feel like just because of all the digital media, kids are just on tablets and like want to play video games because video games are fun, but they're also like an addictive kind of fun that I think kind of can blind a kid to how much fun work can be.
I don't think children of today should receive a phone until they're 16.
Yeah.
Because of the social media is so bad. And what happens, I go to go out to eat, and here's Grandma with her grandchildren, and they're sitting there, and here's Grandma over there. She doesn't have a phone. She's just going, I brought these children, and here they are on their phones. So I have one time went over, and I told the boys, I said, you know, Grandma brought you out here for this wonderful meal that you're going to have. And I think you need to put your phones down and actually look at your grandma and talk with her, visit with her.
That's awesome.
And they kind of looked at me like, are you crazy? But I just feel bad for people that, now Ben's now 17, and we've always had the agreement that you leave the phones in the car. We do not.
And Ben is your grandson.
Yes. And you do, well, when Richard, my son that lives in Ottawa, Illinois, he has 3 children, and I used to go over and be with them. And ever we go out for breakfast or whatever, phone stayed in the car. And they had a little hard time with that because that's their entertainment.
Yeah.
That is their entertainment. We didn't get a television until I was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could only watch 1 hour. That was it. And we didn't get an inside bathroom until I was probably 12.
Wow.
And so things were, a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
We ate as a family. Every night we sat down at the table and we ate as a family, and my dad was always the one to start the conversation with, how's your day, what you do, and then he would tell his day, and we always did that. And Sundays, forget it. That's family day. You're not going anywhere. You're not having friends over. It's strictly family. And we played a lot of board games. We played a lot of cards. Mom would always, she bought these little packages of margarine. They had a red dot in it, and they were in a plastic bag. So your job was to squeeze the bag until the red dot was distributed throughout the whole butter. So one day, my sister, not being as fast as I am, Mom says, you girls need to trade. And so I just tossed mine over to her, and it hit the edge of the chair and busted. And that's my memory of the margarine.
Oh.
Yeah, but yeah, and we had chickens. I had to go feed the chickens, and I had a chicken named Betty Boop, and I was 8 years old, and she rode on my handlebars of my bike, and she rode on my shoulder, and she was allowed in the house, so
Wow.
I would bring her in the house, and then yeah.
How long did Betty Boop live?
Well, one day when I was about 10, my mother, we had all the chickens named, and we were having chicken. And she always announced which chicken we're eating.
Oh my goodness.
And she goes, tonight we are eating Betty Boop.
Oh.
I went, are you serious? I got up and went outside and bawled. It was really hard. But Betty Boop was old.
Yeah.
And not worth, if you don't produce an egg, you don't. We had rabbits also. We had ponies. I didn't like the ponies. They ate my doll clothes. But,
Did you guys grow, or I don't know what it's called with rabbits? Do you grow them? Do you herd them? Did you take care of the rabbits to eat them, or
we took rabbits and ate them.
Hungry.
Yeah. You bred them to eat them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
different.
we had rabbits that you ate.
Mhm.
My mom also had someone that was going out west, and she had them bring rattlesnakes back.
Huh.
To eat.
To eat, yes. And she called it the mystery meal.
Yeah.
And it was very good. It tasted like chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had some snake before.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
somewhere between chicken and fish. I
yeah,
think.
yeah. We did a lot of fishing. I had a grandmother my father's mother, that I adored, and she would come every summer and stay with us for a couple weeks. And she's really the one that implanted Jesus into my heart.
Really.
And she was, a wonderful, wonderful grandmother. And whenever we went to her house to greet her, she lived 2 hours away from us. Whenever we would go and visit her, she would always be on the porch with her apron. And she'd go, hi, 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 and brush her apron, and it was quite a memory. It made a memory for all of us.
How did she implant Jesus in your heart?
Back then, we had comic books, and it was comic books of the Bible, and I still have them. I still have them. And then she would read stories to us, and when we went down, I'd stay all night with her, and she would take us to church the next morning, and she always prayed. And that's another thing our family always did. We always prayed before we ate. And but she was a prayer warrior, and always a happy. She had 14 children, And when my father was 16, he was one of the oldest of the 14. His father had died. He worked at the Marion Steam Shovel Company, and somehow he was in an accident, and he died when my dad was 16. So my grandmother then had to raise all those children.
By herself, she never remarried?
No, she never remarried, and she was the most. I think that's the reason my dad's so happy, why we're so happy. It just passes down, to the next generation. And but she was, and then all the aunts and uncles, they're all happy, and we all get together and we laugh. And funerals were wonderful. Funerals were a party. Because when they sat around, they talked about all the stories of them growing up, and of the horses and the wagons and all of that. And that, my dad, he was born in 1908, so he'd probably be pretty old. I'm not a math person, so he'd probably be pretty old.
What do you think is the source of that happiness? It sounds like you're describing your grandpa died, and that seems like it could be a very tragic event for a family. It could push people to be bitter. What do you think was the source of that happiness?
You have a choice in life. You're either going to be happy or you're going to be a crab. And we've always chose to be happy. And when they talk about the glass being half empty, half full, I only think of half full because, Dave and I have been married 63 years, and we got married when I was a junior in high school, and quickly realized that I had to leave my high school, I had to leave my friends, I had to now become an adult. And then I had Wally, my oldest child, who passed away when he was 33 in an automobile accident, which was very hard. But the beautiful thing about that is that he believed in God with all his heart, and I know where he's at. So when he died, yes, I was sad, but I was also able to handle it. Same thing with, my mother, I was angry. I just went up to her grave and screamed at God. And just screamed, yelled, and hollered at the cemetery. I was so mad. Then I finally woke up and smelled the coffee that God had nothing to do with her dying of cancer, and then I was okay. Then I was okay. And my dad, he died happy. My aunts, we would all get together, my aunts and uncles, when there was a funeral. I plan on having a party at my funeral.
It'll be a big party.
We're going to have door prizes.
Door prizes.
We are. How that's going to happen is my children are going to go through my house and take out anything they don't want, and they're going to bring it to the dinner. And there's going to be a number underneath the plate, and that number is going to be
the item you get to
the
take.
item that you get to take home. Because they don't want anything. Their houses are empty. My house is full.
I'm sure there are people in this church that'll take your stuff. So did you want to get married as a junior in high school? Was that the norm, or?
It was expected.
It was expected?
I did not. We got to the back of the church, and Dave, he was not happy. Were you guys forced to get married then, or? Yes, back then. In 1961, if you were pregnant and had a child before married, yes, you were required. And I was not allowed to go to school anymore. I was allowed to go to my high school graduation. I had to leave my friends. I couldn't have my friends that I had. And I had a lot of friends. And I've always had a lot of friends. But it was all, you had to be an adult now. You had no choice.
And how old were you at that point? 17?
I was 17 by 1 week.
Okay.
When we got married, yeah. And I took I took charge of it and said, okay, this is the way my life's going to be. And like I get, you can either be happy with it or you could be angry. But Dave poor thing. I felt bad for him. He was just not ready to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And we stuck together
Yeah.
for 63 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So I want to take like one step backwards. I know we've been focusing a lot on your childhood, but it is just really interesting because it really feels like you're describing a different world.
Yeah.
And it's only been like one lifetime since then, so that's just crazy that society has changed so much in this country since
oh,
then.
absolutely.
Um,
We didn't go shopping. There
Yeah.
was no malls.
mhm.
The one time of the year, I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
But the one time that we were allowed to go shopping was before Christmas. And we went downtown Akron, and the big stores, O'Neill's and Polsky's, had their windows decorated with moving
Toys.
people.
Oh.
They weren't actually, they were,
Animatronic.
yes.
Yeah.
And they were doing certain things in each window.
Mm.
And that was the only time we got to go shopping. And that was it.
I just wanted to ask about when your experience when you said you were 12 at Bible camp. What do you feel like as a 12-year-old led you to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Well, when I went to the camp,
Mm-hmm.
I went there by myself. And I had to develop new friends. And these girls were friends already. So we had all these little cliques of girls. And I really didn't have anybody, and I tried really hard. And I think the low point that I had, that, you didn't have anybody. You didn't have anybody to eat with. You didn't have anyone to do things with, because they all had their little cliques. And I think it was a low point in my life that I decided God is going to be my Savior.
Mm-hmm.
And He's the one. And
He's gonna be your friend.
He was my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes, He was. And I was never so happy
Mm-hmm.
to leave a camp. But I thank God for that,
Yeah.
because that's what was intended in my life,
Mm-hmm.
that I go to that camp and I met Jesus. And that was awesome.
Yeah, it is amazing how God can use seemingly bad things to really bring us closer to Him.
Right,
Um,
right.
Did you experience that when your son died? I hear that, like, when you lose a child like that, that's life-changing, and a lot of people don't recover from that, and it can really even damage marriages. So how did you and Dave deal with that, losing your son?
We both cried.
Yeah.
Dave had a little harder time than I did, because Dave's not had God in his life.
Mm-hmm.
That I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the care center that he lives right around the corner here, and I have a salvation message that I've written out, and I read it to him 4 or 5 times while I'm there. I am determined that this guy is going to have God in his life.
mm,
And I told him I'm not going to allow him to go to hell. I said, and he's sleeping all this time, because when he's awake, he's not agitated, and he doesn't want to hear it. And I just keep talking.
yeah.
I just keep talking, and I tell him how much God loves him, and how much Jesus loves him,
Mhm.
and I even sing "Jesus Loves Me" to him. And he's got the dementia right now, and he's really not very good.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Only God knows.
Yeah.
But our marriage, he was a good worker. He went to work at the factory and earned a good wage for us, and we was able to build a house on the farm.
Mhm.
His dad owned 160 acres, and he let us have 2 acres. And we lived in the basement for 6 years, and then we built up. And so Dave's always been a good worker,
Mm-hmm.
but and this is the first church I've ever gone to that talks about maybe you're not chosen. And maybe he's not chosen.
Yeah.
But I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what God has in mind, okay. But I have other
Yeah.
You have other plans?
I have other plans that he's going to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see. It's up to God. It's totally up to God.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I'm going to know it is after I die. Because it says in the Bible, and I have to look it up, but I remember a pastor telling me that when we die, that we're going to know each other by our personalities. And that's why I'm tigerific.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you see me after we're gone, there's going to be this person up there just jumping and, and springing.
We'll know it's you.
And then you'll know it's me, because I've always been tigerific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I choose to be.
Yeah.
I always said Dave's Eeyore-rific.
Eeyore.
He's not ever been a real happy person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and his mom and dad weren't either. He came from 8 children in his family. I never heard a cuss word until I married him and got around his family. It was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the way their work ethics are great. I mean, they were farmers. He worked in the factory, but there was just no God.
And they weren't happy.
No, they were not happy. That's the first thing that, it was really sad because I had to not really fight it. I just had to understand that I was very blessed. And came from a very happy family, not just with my dad's side of the family, but also my mother's, because my mother had 8 children, and her husband decided to run away to Erie, Pennsylvania, to be with another person, and Grandma, we always called her Grandma Toady, she was left with raising 8 children and did a fantastic job.
Wow.
Yeah, they were all happy, and we all got together, and they had different stories than my dad's, family. But it was unbelievable. I mean, I'm sure there was some sad times, but I'm at the top of the glass.
Yeah.
I don't try to go with the sad times.
Yeah, I was trying to come up with questions for you for this interview, and I was just thinking about like how many times it says in when it talks about suffering in the New Testament, it says basically there's the famous verse in James that consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. And I was also thinking about in Romans where Paul says that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance produces character, and character hope, or something. I might be getting that wrong. But anyways, it seems like a lot of people have lost that idea in our day and age, that even though most people I know haven't lost a parent or lost a sibling or anything like that, little things just tip them off the rocker, and they don't have a lot of perspective. I'm talking about other people. I'm going to talk about myself. I don't have a lot of perspective on the suffering, quote unquote, in my life. That small things can happen, and it really just can ruin my day. When it's actually, I could think about all of the good things in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you look at what we call trauma nowadays, it's I have trauma because I fell off my bike. And then there's someone's dad running away. Or you have 14 or 13 other siblings, and then your dad dies. That's trauma.
Yes.
But I guess people back then probably didn't even call it that. And maybe they called it life and just dealt with it.
It's called survive. Back then, you go through the depression. I mean, my dad was talking about the food they ate and they were very limited on what they could eat or what they had. They knew how to garden. They knew how to raise chickens and raise rabbits and have the cow milk, you know, to survive. I can remember my mom saying that they lived in this farmhouse, and Grandma took in laundry and she took to make money, and she also had the big garden and the cow and the chickens and all that in order to raise these children. And she said they were so poor. She had one dress, and they had a fork to comb their hair because they had no combs or brushes. And then she had to take her socks and shoes off, all of them, to walk to the end of the lane to get on the bus because it was a muddy mess or a dirty mess to get to the end of the bus, you know, to get the bus. And but then at the beginning, she rode a horse to school. But they had to go barefooted. And then when they got to school, they put on their socks and shoes. And there's a lot of stories that they would say what they did. And carried your lunch in a jar.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if more of that comes to our country, which I feel like probably is in our future, is just, I don't think that we're going to continue at the rate of affluence that we have been. Just because people's moral character is declining so quickly.
Right. I have my trombone still. And they're saying that we need to have musical instruments. So I have a French horn, I have a trombone, which I'm teaching myself how to play. Then I have my trombone. I have probably 10 harmonicas.
Why do you need musical instruments? For what?
Well, you need it to be happy, to be joyful, to make music, to dance. You know, remember in the old cowboy movies, they always had someone playing a violin or a guitar, and they always had dances. And
Sam Hagerman was telling me a story. He was reading a book about Shackleton, the guy who tried to reach the South Pole, I think it was.
Yes.
And in his crew, basically, they got to a point where their sled dog, I think it was their sled dogs died. Or no, they didn't die. They got to the point where they ran out of food, and so they had to kill the sled dogs. And so now they were going to have to carry all their stuff themselves. And so basically Shackleton was like, you can't have any of your personal possessions. This is what you're going to carry. Except the one guy who could play this musical instrument. I think it was some form of guitar or lute or something. He was like, you have to carry your lute. Or guitar or whatever, or we'll die. And it's like, that's a very severe situation, but I feel like in life in general, music is very important to human survival.
I mean, I played piano, took lessons to how to play piano, which you don't. I know how to play a keyboard, which you don't know because I'm not doing it in church. Because at the other church, I did play the keyboard, and I was quite involved in the worship, but I'm not. No, I'm going to enjoy it here. And no, music is a huge thing. Throughout my life, and I've always tried to learn how to play instruments. My sister had a flute, didn't like it, so I taught myself how to play it, and I could play flute. I play piano. I have my harmonicas. I have the French horn from Tracy or Jody, my oldest girl, let me use it till I'm learning how to play that. I'm never lacking in something to do. I'm always busy learning how to do. I love painting. I like to do art.
And how old are you again?
I'm halfway to 160.
Okay. So the fact that you still want to learn new things, I think that's very impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Because I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, man, I just got to keep doing like what I'm already doing. Like I can't really just learn new things. Like
I've
I'm
taught
already
my-
past my prime, but I'm 25.
No, you're only halfway to
Past your
50. No, I've taught myself how to whittle. I have this great big huge basket of all this wood that I've whittled, and I don't make anything to make it look like anything. I just make it so smooth that, and I don't use any sandpaper. So I've taught myself how to whittle. I know how to, I know how to can, because I had to to eat when we were in high school, when married, and yeah, I love hiking. I love singing. I like people. There's not a person that I strike up a conversation with anybody that'll stand still long enough that I say hi and I want to learn who they are. And now I want to know if they believe in God. Now I'm out evangelizing and making sure that they have God right now. Well, not now, but I feel for a very long time, God has gone ahead of me, and He's prepared things for me, so when I needed it, it was there. Like when Dave had the heart attack, and he had to go to Terrace Glen. We had to sell the farm. Well, I bought myself a house. And I have a wonderful 3-story home, including the attic and a basement. And I have a wonderful house. I have 3 boys now, 7, 10, 11, and 12, that come to my house, and I'm teaching them how to make pies.
Really?
And I'm teaching them how to make soup. And I'm teaching them how to cook. And we also are playing Monopoly. We're playing card games. We're playing, and all of them boys, all 4 of them boys, they now have God in their life. I went and bought them all a Bible, and now we have a little Bible time.
Wow.
Are those just kids from your neighborhood? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kids from the neighborhood, yeah.
So how did they meet them? Did you just see them outside and start talking to them? Or?
Yeah, they were going past my house in their little bikes or their little, and they have 4 dogs that they walk. These 2 boys have 4 dogs that they walk twice a day with their dad. And they do believe, the father does believe, but he said the boys 10 and 11. And then there's a 12-year-old that he doesn't come, he's a blended family, so he doesn't come very often. But the 10-year-old, the 12-year-old, and now I have the 7-year-old that comes. And so I got 3 boys that come. And the one boy's now learning how to mow my grass. He's never mowed his grass, and now he said, "Can I mow your grass?" I said, "Absolutely."
Wow.
So I'm teaching him how to mow the grass. These boys just don't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
They don't know how to do anything.
I feel like that's pretty much all kids and most adults.
Yeah, we don't
Yes.
watch TV at all.
Uh-huh.
We're reading. We'll take a book and we'll read the book, because the 7-year-old is going to be he'll be 8 next month. He don't know how to read. He's going to be in 3rd grade. So
That's the norm for school. Like if you're going to school, is that norm?
no,
No?
to not be able to read.
Well, I know in like 1st and 2nd grade they're learning how to read.
Yeah, but 3rd grade probably, like
Okay.
most kids would know.
Oh,
how to
3rd
read.
grade, he
Okay.
should be able to just read anything right here,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
And I think how awful. He doesn't know the words like there, they, the, all those sight words. And I think, so I'm teaching him how to read. And the other 2 boys are also. And now, we play the games, and I make them vacuum. And
You've got yourself some little workers.
yes, well, and see, we're having fun, and they don't even know it.
They don't even know they're doing house chores for you.
We washed the car the other day, and I showed them how to wax a car. And
I think I'm going to have to join you. I don't know half those things.
well, I learned it from a guy down at Old Thrashers Reunion. He waxes his car with furniture polish. You don't spray it on the car, but you put it on a rag, and then you spray you wipe your car. And that's what they use on those antique cars. Yeah. When I was in 4th grade, we had a creek behind us and there were goldfish. So I went back there and I gathered up in a big gallon jar goldfish. And I took them to school and I sold them.
Really?
Yeah, I sold the goldfish to the kids in my class. For honoring us, I collected frogs. And I let the frogs loose in the hallway.
That's pretty awesome.
We had fun.
So, did you enjoy raising your kids? You're getting to kind of do that again with these boys.
Absolutely, yes. We had a woods back behind our house when we lived in Ohio. And they liked to go back there and play. So I said, and they wanted me to always go with them. I said, oh, no problem. I said, you clean the bathroom, you clean the kitchen, and I said, you all make your beds, because we all make our beds, because how wonderful is that? You dress your bed before you go to bed, and then when you get out of bed, you dress your bed, and then when you get into your bed, you get to pull the covers down and you get to undress it. So everything is fun. I mean,
Yeah, that's
you have to just kind of.
How do you convince a kid that doing chores is fun?
Because you do it with them. You do it with them. You don't just go clean the bathroom. No, you go into the bathroom and you help clean it. Or when they're 2 years old, you give them a little spray bottle.
Gwen loves spraying things.
And a rag. And you tell them to wash all the bottom cupboards and wipe them off. Sure, they're not going to do very well. They're not going to do a very good job. But eventually, they'll get better and better and better with doing it.
That's true. Gwen really loves using a spray bottle, and she really loves wiping things up.
Yes.
And today, Pauline was over, and she wanted to hold on to the vacuum while Pauline vacuumed.
Yes.
She just wanted to hold it.
Yes. Well, I have this vacuum cleaner now it's just a vacuum cleaner with a handle, and you turn it on and it's lightweight and off it goes, You have fun with that one. It's not a trudge like the old Electrolux, you had the old, you guys probably don't know.
Nope.
There was an Electrolux tank, and then you had this hose coming off, and then, well, you had to drag that thing all over the place.
Yeah.
Wherever you went, the tank went with you, and sometimes you jerk it and then it run into your legs, but yeah, I look at life as an adventure. It's an adventure of blowing bubbles. I don't care what you're doing. It's fun. And there's times in life that things are not fun, but I don't try to think of those things.
So were you able to instill the happiness you have into your kids?
Absolutely.
But Dave is not happy. So how did that dynamic work out if you were wanting things
He went
to
to
be fun
work.
and happy? Oh.
He went to work.
He left.
So we all celebrated when he went to work. And then when he came home, then we all had to behave. Yeah, we all had to behave. We couldn't do the fun things that we were doing because he just would not let his hair down, if you know what I mean by that. He just could not. Everything had to be rigid. Everything had to be, and that was the way he was raised. And
so I want to switch some. I was trying to remember the questions that I had written down, and one of them that I really did want to ask is, what kind of advice would you give to young women or girls? Because it seems like I'm not like, I don't really have much room to be judgmental at all, but it seems like I know a lot of unhappy girls and young women.
Why?
I mean, just like in our society at large,
Yeah.
it seems like probably not like ones I know specifically, but like it seems like a lot of girls and young women are not happy.
Do you think it's because of the materialistic? They have to have everything. They have to have a phone. They have to have clothes. They have to have things that match. I mean, I went to school. I never had socks that matched. I don't know. I raised my girls to be happy with what they had. And I taught them all who God was and how God worked in their life and how important God was, and prayer. And then I sat them down, all of them, my boys and my girls, and because I did not want happening to them what happened to me. That someone says, if you really love me, you'll have sex with me. And I bought it, and I got pregnant. So there's consequences back then. And if you did have an abortion, heaven forbid, you had it in the back alley. And you were lucky to be alive. Dave's mom and dad wanted me to have an abortion. I said, absolutely not.
Wow.
Said, you take your little boy and you take him home. I said, I don't want anything to do with that. Because I had a very strong God at the age that I was. So I taught my boys and I taught my girls at 9 years old what a man was, that they had the body parts and everything, and what a girl, men and women. I taught them both. And then when they got to be 12 and 13 years old, when the emotions start, then I taught them about emotions. And I told them, I said, how easy it is when you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and you want to kiss them and you want to hold hands. Then all of a sudden you're hugging and then you're putting hands where they don't belong. I call that getting in a boat and going down the river, in a very fast river, and you cannot get out. You cannot get out of the boat because your emotions are running so high that you can't go back.
Yeah.
So I taught them, hold their hand, give them a kiss, but do not do long kisses and do not do long hugs. And save yourself for the woman or the man that you're going to marry someday. Don't have a swinging door. I said, save yourself, because that's what God wants you to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to be talking to kids about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably earlier nowadays. Like you said, 9 and 12 and 13.
Well, now they teach it in schools.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my stars. And do you trust them to give them the right information?
No.
I do not. I don't. So I feel that, when we go to Pennsylvania to see Dave's twin brother, he had 3 girls. And they had me because they said, we don't want to have to sit down and talk to them about that. So they had me sit down with the 3 girls. And I told them. I said, this is our responsibility.
Yeah.
If we have God in our life, that you wait till you're married. How does that happen today? Because sex is so open. And some of these girls are starved for love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are starved for love, and they'll do anything for love. And their unhappiness, I don't understand. I don't see any little girls here unhappy.
Yeah.
I really don't. They all have godly parents. This is the first church I've ever had that there were so many godly men. There's always godly women, I mean, look in
Well, it's easier. I feel like it is easier for women to.
yeah. Well, look in the old churches when Jesus was around. They had a curtain, and the men sat in the front, and the women sat in the back, because the women had that in their lives and the love of the Lord in their lives, and the man did not. So they put the man in the front, and with the curtain drawn between, back in the old days, the men sat on this side and the women sat on that side. And
Well, in Nepal, there definitely were way more women in all of the churches.
right,
And very few, not very few, but fewer men.
yeah. So when did you learn how to drive a car?
I think I started in school when I was about 16 in school, and then I failed. I was not a good driver. And then my dad taught me when I was like 17, 18, because I didn't get a lot of practice at home. And then I think when I was like 17 or 18 was when I passed my driver's test after the third time of trying to take it, driving.
In Akron, Ohio, we had lots of hills with the red light. And we had a clutch and a brake and a gas. So you had to learn how to bring the clutch out and keep your foot on the brake and the gas. So that when the light turned green, you didn't roll backwards.
Yeah.
Because you roll backwards, well, you're going to... those hills were just like this. I'm not kidding you. And the first time my dad had me in a car and we drove downtown Akron, I was petrified. But I did it. And we had my dad never had a brand new car. We had a car, an old Ford, a 52 Ford, that you had to turn the steering wheel. Sorry. Around,
That's okay.
The steering wheel had to be turned before the car even turned. Did I break it? Okay. I've had a lot of, how else could you not?
Yeah.
At 80. I've had so many, I could sit here forever and talk about different things.
Okay.
But I'm not going to.
It does seem like your childhood, you were involved in things that were real and things that really did matter. Learning how to survive, learning how to build things. And it seems like a lot of kids today are not very involved in things that are that physical and that real.
Parents today, how many parents today allow their children to dust or to vacuum or to, my kids were painting the house, not with paint, but with water. They thought they were actually painting the house. They give them a bucket of water with a paintbrush, and they go out there and paint the house and just... Yeah, they just loved it, I had 3 kids go to Iowa State, and my oldest boy was a metallurgical engineer, and he went to, he worked at North Star, which is in Iowa, a steel mill. And he went to Louisiana, and then he went to South Carolina, and was a metallurgical engineer, a manager at the plant that he worked at with the steel mill. And he took us there one time into the plant, and everybody just loved him. You could hear guys way up where the big, huge steel melted would come out, and be into the molds, Hey, Wally, and they were just so happy to see him. And then my second son, Richard, a very happy guy. And then there's Jody, who's really over happy. And then there's Tracy, and we all know who Tracy is. Yeah. Well, if you don't, you should. But she used to go to church. But yeah, her walk with God is a little slow right now. Her and Ben. But they'll come back.
Yeah.
They'll come back only because they have a praying mother that's, whether they like it or not.
So, you mentioned that when you were 12, you were at the camp and you had a low point there because you didn't feel like you had friends. And then fast forward when your mother passed away, you felt like that made you really angry at a low point there. I guess when you've encountered those difficulties and you have found that like you can't just keep an upbeat spirit, how do you feel like, how do you feel like you handled that?
For a short period of time, I was really mad at God. And then the good old devil likes to put lies in your mind. And to this day, like earlier I said what my son had said to me, which was awful. I just told him, that is a bold-faced lie. He said that, I don't really want to say it because I don't want it to be.
That's fine.
Yeah. But he said something that was just like, I was just astounded. And I approach it now that the devil is constantly trying to put lies in your mind. And he's trying to get you away from God. And so you handle it like, I feel I'm confident in handling it and saying to him, that is a bold-faced lie. And I am not going to believe it. Because God is in charge. God is in control of your father. And that is a bold-faced lie. And whether Dave likes it or not, he's going to love God. That's what my prayer is. And if he does it, well, it's his choice.
Yeah.
We all have choices. And there's all consequences. But this world today, when I was a little girl, we never had to lock the door. Whenever we went anywhere, you never had to. We go on vacations. We go to Ocean City, Maryland for the summer, for 3 weeks. After we got done with the camping at the Girl Scout camp, we would always drive to Ocean City, Maryland. Back then, you could park right on the beach and in the sand, and never had to lock. We never locked our door at the house.
Yeah.
Never locked your car door. You could leave your purse laying somewhere and know confidently that it was going to be there. Nobody's gonna, nowadays, I have a granddaughter that lives in Brooklyn, New York. She's 36 years old. She said, Granny Annie, her friend has a car, and she put a lock on the cap so they wouldn't steal the gas. Well, they crawled under her car.
Oh, wow.
And drilled a hole.
Wow.
And, so, and sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Something that I did want to ask you about is I personally have been trying to grow in prayer recently because I feel like that's something that I've always been terrible at, having a consistent prayer life and feeling like I can pray for longer than 30 seconds without getting distracted.
No, you pray all day.
Yeah. Exactly.
You don't sit and just do these long prayers. No, you pray all day.
And the Bible says to pray continuously.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Yeah. You pray and you're grateful. And you're I hate to use the word happy all the time, but you're happy with God with all the blessings that he gives you. I look at your little boy and I think, my goodness gracious, he has grown he's not that little baby anymore.
Yeah,
He's
he's
probably
growing
almost,
quick.
yeah, he's probably almost walking. But the beautiful part of that, he has 2 godly parents.
Mm-hmm.
Your child has godly parents. I think it's just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. So when did you, I guess, I know you said that your grandma just prayed all the time, so obviously that probably had an impression on you. When do you feel like you first really took praying seriously?
When my son got killed in that automobile accident,
Mm-hmm.
as I was probably in my early 30s. But well, actually, when my mother passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and because her and I had Bible time, because I was totally taking care of her,
Mm-hmm.
and her and I would read the Bible and we would talk about it and we would pray, and that's probably when. And I've always felt I was a terrible prayer.
Mm.
Always. And I have a hard time memorizing. I only know 2 verses.
Mm.
God so loved the world that, and then I have Jesus wept. But I have a horrible time memorizing Bible verses.
Mm-hmm.
And I just go, okay. So what I have done recently, because I really want to get into having a Bible journal.
Mm.
I've always had journals, but they're about me.
Mm.
But now I want to, I on my phone, I have my Bible on my phone, and every day it gives me a Bible verse. So I write the Bible verse down, then I go to my study Bible, and I see what it says about that verse, and I square off the page, and then over here I've got what the commentary said.
Mm-hmm.
And then on my phone, we can get different versions of different Bibles. So I'll go to King James, and it'll have a different word than what my Bible says. So I just kind of write it in there. And it kind of gives you more of an in-depth Bible study every morning. And then below that, I always give a journal or what that particular verse says. And then I always kind of journal what the weather is, what the temperature is, what I've been doing that day. And my very favorite Bible verse now is in Zephaniah, 3rd chapter, 17th verse. It just fits me like a shoe. The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In his love, he will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you with singing. That is amazing. That God is over you singing.
Yeah.
And he's singing in tune.
I'm sure.
But that right now is, my Bible says a little different than what this one says. But it's the same thing.
So I was wondering what it's like being older. Because we're all going to get old, and some people are very scared of being old, and your body changes, and you maybe can't do the things you used to, and now you're getting closer to being with the Lord. How have you dealt with that? Like waking up, and you used to work so hard, and you used to camp, and you used to do all these things that maybe you can't do anymore. How have you dealt with aging?
I used to be able to jump off tables.
Yeah. Can you do that?
I used to be able to skip. I used to be able to run fast. I cannot do those things anymore, but I can walk fast. And I just tell people I'm 80 years old, and I try not to act it. Because how many people do you know that are old? I could name quite a few that you know, but I'm not going to. But they have critical spirits. They don't like
being old.
They don't like being old. I love being old. I really do.
Why?
That I don't know. But I love my age. I love my age. To be 80 years old, I think in my family is quite good because I don't know of too many people that. I look at my class. I had 92 in my class. We're dropping like flies right now because not too many people live past 76 or 75, and I'm 80.
So what's the secret to long life? I thought it was liver, but apparently you don't eat liver. So
No, I don't eat liver.
It can't be liver.
I feel, here's what I tell people. The recliners are the worst thing that was ever invented because people get in a recliner and they don't get out.
Yeah.
And so what happens when you're constantly in the recliner? You're not moving your joints. You're not. When I bought this house, there's 11 steps to get to the second floor. Then there's another 11 steps to get to the attic. I go up and down those steps three times a day. I go up and then down, and up and then down. I don't go to the basement because they're too steep. I've already fallen.
Yeah, don't fall into your basement.
Yeah. I've already fallen on July the 8th. I hit my eye, I hit my arm, and the back of my leg. But the blessings of all that, I did not have any broken bones. I have no broken bones. I should have had this that hit on my eyebrow. It still hurts.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking great. And
yeah, and there's a lump here, and I still have this that is, this skin was peeled back. And when you get old, you get very thin skin.
Yeah.
So the doctor took a pair of tweezers and literally just pulled the skin over, and then put a compression Band-Aid on it, which they don't. I mean, we didn't have Band-Aids when I was little.
So you're saying exercise, basically moving your body and doing things.
If you do not get out of the chair and start moving, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. And if you look at a lot of these old people that are in our church that have the problems of, even the younger ones, it's because they're sitting too much. I mean, if I'm doing my Bible study, I put my Bible in my arms and I'm walking around the house. I don't just sit down, and then if I have something to write, I go over to the table and I write it down.
Do you think that also helps you be happy, moving your body and
well, it makes you
engaging
feel
with
good.
life? Yeah,
it makes you feel good because, I mean, I can get out of a chair, I can walk, I can go downstairs, I can go up the stairs, without a lot of problems.
So that's probably helped you enjoy being old because you don't have a ton of the old people problems.
And I'll tell you another thing that I do is I have a radio, and I have it in my living room, and I have an open. You've been to my house because you helped me move. I put the radio on 101.9. It's not loud. It's not soft. It's on 24/7. It never goes off unless electricity. And then I got this little radio that's battery operated, and my electricity went off one time, so I have that.
You have backup 101.
I have backup, yes.
That's good.
Well, and the other thing that gives you joy is when you're doing something for other people.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lady over here at Terrace Glen, 92 years old. She was a music teacher in Cedar Rapids schools and at Albernet schools. And she's having a really difficult time. She loves the Lord. And I send her cards. And she is just absolutely, or I do things for her. When I go visit Dave when Dave's sleeping, and then I go see Marilyn. And I do things. And doing for other people, getting away from yourself is a joy. Helping other people. There was an old man mowing his grass. the other day. I stopped my car. He was doing a push mower.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped my car and I just took over. I said, excuse
A
me.
random man, you didn't know him?
I have no idea who he was. He was an old man. And I'm old,
But you don't act like
I don't act old. I try not to act old. So he was really hot. He's really having a hard time. I just parked my car and went over and I said, excuse me, and he looks at me and he goes, and I said, I'm going to mow your grass. And without him saying, oh, no, you're not, I just pushed him.
Wow.
And he didn't have a very big yard. I mean, it was just in town, a small yard. If I see a little kid having problems, I always help him. Or if I'm at the grocery store and there's an older person trying to get their groceries into the trunk of their car, here, let me help you.
I would say you're one of a kind. In this generation, people even have a problem being nice. Like, I would have that desire, but I would think, oh, they'll think I'm weird.
Oh, no,
or they
that's
won't
the devil talking
want
to you.
me to help
no,
them.
No, that's the lies.
Mhm.
That's the lies. You cannot go with the lie. You have to, here, let me take your cart. Let me help you get your groceries in, and I'll take your cart. I did that this morning. Stopped at Walmart, and there was an elderly lady trying to get her groceries in the car. Well, how she was driving, I have no idea. And then I just said, here, I'll just take your cart. And then there was, on the way in, there's another person struggling with their cart. I said, let me just have your cart.
Yeah.
So I took 2 carts. But
Have you ever struggled with being shy or like?
absolutely never.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's not a shy bone in my, no. No, in fact, I probably embarrassed my children. And with Holly, I've been friends with Holly for a long time, and she's like, really? I say, yeah, you help other people, and in turn, what does that do for you?
Makes you happy.
It makes you happy. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel good about yourself, and not in a bragging. It's just what I do, and I have to be very, very careful
Yeah.
because I'm very kind, and sometimes I've got myself in trouble for being too kind.
What's an example of that?
Oh well, the lady that lives opposite me, I ran over to help her get her groceries in the house. And she said, you do realize this is my exercise.
Oh.
I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I just want, and she's 75. But, yeah. So I have to be careful.
She's 75 and you're 80 and you were trying to help her.
Yeah. Well, I decided I could have myself a little business with my neighbors. That I counted about 8 of them. That's next to me. Well, the Methodist church is next to me, but across the street, and then you come up, and so and they're all, not all of them are old, but they're all, So I'm thinking of offering to take their trash out to the street on Monday nights, and then on Tuesday morning, take their trash containers back to their house. But I don't want to have to get in. I don't want to get. I'd have to go talk to them.
Yeah.
And offer that. What does that do? Gets you out of the chair, and it gets you doing something for people, and you get a reward. And I don't do it to have recognition at all. I do not. I just do it. That's just what I like to do. I like to help other people. I like to fly kites. When I lived at the farm, I would fly 6 kites at one time. I would get a cement block, and I'd put it out into the field, and I would get them all flying. In different. It was really cool. When I was a little girl, we made our own kites. We never bought a kite. We made our own kites with my dad's help, with the balsa wood that he made to make the planes.
Yeah.
We would use the balsa wood to make. We had box kites. We had all kinds of kites, and you used newspaper. And of course, we always saved the funny papers because that always made it colorful. Hey, you know.
Your personality kind of reminds me of Maria from The Sound of Music.
She was a happy girl, wasn't she?
Yeah, very happy, very helpful.
Yes, and you know, the Von Trapps, it says, have you watched the movie, The Sound of Music?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, they did not go to see, now here's another thing about getting old. Yeah. You can't think of what you're... They were there for a competition in singing. They had a quartet of men that came and sang, what do you call that? I'm playing charades now. When people are in a contest.
Oh, a concert? Or
it's okay.
Singing competition?
It's okay.
Okay.
But now I lost my train of thought.
that's
They
okay.
were-
You know, I do that too. And I'm like a quarter of your age. So.
Yeah.
The Von Trapps were in a singing competition.
They were, oh, yes. But they were not really in that contest. They were at Hitler's house singing for his birthday.
Really?
Wow.
And the neighborhood always knew that the Von Trapps, and there were 7 of them, would hike. They would hike up the mountains, and they always had on extra clothing, and they always had their backpacks on. So it was not unusual to see them that when they got done singing to the Hitler, that they went back to their house. And it wasn't the mansion that you see on Sound of Music, but they would go back to their, and it was a pretty big house that they lived in, and they all put on as many clothes as they possibly could, put on their backpacks and their hats and their walking sticks. They walked up to the back of the house where there was a big, huge, I would call it a mountain, but it was a hill.
Yeah.
And they caught the train, and as soon as they crossed into Turkey, everything was closed. God got them out of Austria
Yeah. Wow.
and into Turkey, and from there they went to the United States. We were in Austria at one time. Dave would always in competition plow. He was the president of the Iowa plowing, he was the president of the United States plowing, and we would then go to world plowings, and there would be every year, 2 people from the United States. Right this year, they're going to Slovenia.
Huh.
But there's 28 countries that are in competition in the world, and we went to Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Czech Republic, Sweden, Austria, Germany, Canada. I can't think of anything else.
Just real quick, how does competitive plowing work? Like, what do you compete? Like speed?
No.
Like how fast you can do it?
No,
Or?
not fast. It's you have to go very slow. Because with your plow, you can only plow 7 inches into the ground. That's part of the rules. When you turn the soil over, all of the grass has to be under the ground. You can't leave anything, no grass. The opening has to be completely straight. You're allowed, let's say this book is your plot. This is what you're going to plow. So as you start plowing, your ends going in has to be just like this book, straight. And when you get done plowing across to here, when you get out, it has to be as straight as that. You're judged on all of that.
That's interesting.
Yes.
I've never heard of
Competition plowing, yes. Yeah. And it's really, Dave started plowing when he was 16 in competition, him and his twin brother. And they won the state, but because they were 16, they weren't old enough to go on to what's called nationals, which is the United States. And then from there, you got to go to worlds. But
anyways, you were in Austria.
we were in Austria, and talking to the people, they don't want anything to do with the Von Trapps.
Really?
No, they pretty much told you not to talk about it anymore.
Why was that?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I didn't have a chance to ask.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, all those countries that we got to visit, they all spoke English,
Mm-hmm.
so you could understand them. The most interesting was going to Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm.
The old people, I'm not old, but the old people, when we got on the because you had to go down underground and get in the subway, and then you got to go to Prague, and you got to come out of the ground. They said the mafia lives down underground, so you all had to be careful with anything you carried, your purses, your anything. But when you got up above into Prague, even the tour guide is afraid of, so, because, and then the old people, they have absolutely no emotion, none on their faces. They were so oppressed with the communists
Yeah.
that they didn't dare have any emotions on their.
And what year was that you were there?
We were there in 2008. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the last trip we went to was Sweden, which I absolutely loved, was in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
But you were there for 10 days, and then all these countries, they took you on buses. I'll never forget when we went to Ireland. The bus driver took us down to the Atlantic Ocean. And I got so excited. I said, I am going down there and I'm putting my feet in the Atlantic Ocean. And they all thought I was crazy. And I said, you know why? Because we are on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
And over there is New York City or the eastern coast of the United States. Oh my, they all rushed off the bus, they got their shoes and socks off, and they all joined me in the water. But before that, I really thought that was exciting.
Yeah.
To be on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
That would be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they never, I don't know, I just think different, I guess.
I think you think different. Yeah.
It seems like you look for opportunities to have fun.
Oh, yes.
Keep your eyes open.
Oh, yes. And my harmonica went with me because I played my harmonica the whole time we were on the bus or where we were there. And I bought me a recorder when I was in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
I meant Austria.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway.
So you were saying your parents knew the
Von Trapp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in 1962. The Girl Scouts have what is called a Girl Scout Roundup. And at that particular time, it was in Stowe, Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the Von Trapp settled, because Stowe, Vermont reminded them so much of their country of Austria. So they have a lodge there. They have all these little cabins that you can stay in. And at that time, Maria and Gaylord were still alive. So when they went to go see that particular community, they got to actually be with Gaylord and Maria.
Wow.
So I went with my son Richard, and he had 3 children, and his wife was named Maria, and she died of cancer probably 8 years ago. But we went to Stowe, Vermont, and they would go off skiing, and then I would go up to the lodge, and their youngest child, Maria and Gaylord, was in the lodge, and I got to knit with her.
Huh.
Yeah, and then that's when she told me the stories
Uh-huh.
of growing up and how it was when they were over in Austria.
Were they happy people?
Very, very happy, and sang,
Mm-hmm.
and they played their
Accordion?
accordions.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very happy. Yeah,
Hmm.
but so then I got to be with Maria,
Mm-hmm.
who was at that time 92, and it was kind of fun to visit with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be in where because my mom and dad The Sound of Music came along, and my mom died at 60 in 1966. My mom died at 54, and she wanted so bad to go see that movie, and was not able to. She was bedridden, dying of cancer, and so that's when I went, okay. I bet you I've watched The Sound of Music probably 50 times. But I did enjoy going to Stowe, Vermont. That was really, really a lot of fun. And to visit with Maria, because I love history. And that was very interesting to hear the real story.
What was the real story? What did she say?
Well, what she was saying about them singing to Hitler. And,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because at the end of the movie, they go to this like big singing competition. And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you
and
go.
then they're trying to run away from the secret police.
Yeah.
But you're saying like really that they just were known for kind of disappearing into the mountains, and
Yes.
so they just disappeared into the
So
mountains.
they did. They disappeared. And the German soldiers, the Nazis, wanted him to be in charge of the naval because he was in the military, and they had him already tagged, and that's what he was going to do. Yeah. So there you go.
Well, I feel like we should find a way to wrap this conversation up. It's been a really great conversation.
Well, would you like to know what I like for when I die?
Yes.
Sure. We'll get it on record. That way we can't ignore it.
Well, I've
Yes.
already talked to Ben Hunt about it to get permission.
Uh-huh.
So when I die, only God knows when, I want to be cremated. I want all my organs donated. And then I want to be cremated, and I want a big hole dug out back here. And my ashes put in the bottom of the hole, and I want a tree planted on top. That's what I want.
And we can go, hey, look, it's Anne.
Yeah, oh, you could.
It'll be the start of our church cemetery.
Yeah. So I went to Ben, and I asked, and Ben said that would be great.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So,
Well,
and
thanks.
then we're
Go
going to
ahead.
have the party,
Yeah, the party.
you know. Yeah.
What kind of tree? I'm sorry. What
No,
kind
go
of tree
ahead.
would you like planted on top of you?
Dave Steinman is a forestry guy, and he's going to let me know what kind would be the best kind. So, and I don't want it to be a messy tree like buckeye or oak that it drops everything, you know, all the nuts and everything. I just want it to be a regular tree that's not, that you wouldn't have to go out there and rake up all those walnuts or the nuts or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It was a lot of fun, and I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah.
It's definitely encouraged me to think about like my life and my children. I mean, I have one child right now, but just like how to be happy. Like that's what everyone wants to know is how can you be happy? And people,
You know how to make children happy?
how?
You have them help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
You have them, you help them and they help you. Have them help you set the table. Have them help you wash your car. Have them help you plant. Have you involve them in your life along with God.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy because nowadays the thought is you get the children away from you so you can do things.
Right.
Not that you have them with you and you're
Right.
doing things together.
Well, yes. I mean, I can remember what, well, here we go again.
We'll have you
What's
back,
our-
Ann. We'll have to.
What's our runtime, Nathan? I mean, we can keep going.
You can shut it.
A little under 2 hours.
A little under 2 hours. Wow. Okay.
Oh my God.
Well, we'll probably
Well,
wrap it up.
I
with
have
that.
one more thing. When I was
Yeah.
a Girl Scout,
Go ahead.
I went 100 miles down the river,
Wow.
Which river?
the Tuscaroras River in Ohio.
In Ohio.
Yeah, we went 100 miles down the river, and
Did that take multiple days or?
you had a week,
Oh.
and we camped at the site, and we had to forage over a dam, and we fished, but we had food that was, you had to have water to it, and we didn't have regular food. We had what's it called?
Like ready-to-eat meals.
Yes. And all you do is add water.
Like dehydrated food?
Yes,
Okay.
dehydrated food. Yes, that's what we had to eat. Yeah. But anyway, that was.
Well, I think we're going to have to have you back.
Oh,
Yeah. There could be a second
yeah.
conversation. I mean, there's
Yeah.
still a lot to learn about you, I feel like.
Well, I want to get into details about lots of things you mentioned.
Well, how about sewing and knitting and
And whittling and
And
lashing.
right,
I want
I
to
know
learn
those.
more about lashing because to me that is I've done like a little bit of that, not like actually been taught how to do it, but just done it. And like whenever we go to the Boundary Waters, we call it bushcrafting.
oh,
But it's always fun to try and make our furniture there so we can make a table to play cards on.
oh yes. And you also can make a where you have your pan of water
Mhm.
and you have it lashed between two trees, and then you have sticks that will fit the bowl so that you can stand up
Oh.
and shave or whatever,
Mhm.
wash your hands,
Yeah, have a little sink.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, anyways, thank you again
Yeah.
for meeting with us. And if you're listening to this podcast, we want to interview you and talk to you about, probably not about lashing, but about, unless you know about lashing, then we do want to talk to you about it. But talk to you about your life, talk to you about your walk with God, and just get to know you better. So, again, this podcast is called NewLifeCast.
Unless there's a better name.
Unless
out
there's a
there.
better name out there. But thank you for listening. Thank you for giving us your time and attention.
Yeah, and if you see Anne at church, feel free to talk to her and ask her more about the things we were talking about today.
Yes,
I'm sure
unless
she'd be
she's
happy to talk
already
to you.
talking to you.
Unless she's already talking.
Yeah.
Because that happens.
You know, and I want to share this really quick. The first time I met you, I was coming to church and I cut you off in traffic.
Oh,
And I got to church and you recognized, like you got to church and you saw me get out of the car and I was walking up and you gave me a hug and you said, "You cut me off in traffic." And you were so happy and laughing about it. And I was really embarrassed. Like, oh my gosh, she's coming to church and I cut her off.
oh my
But
God.
that sticks in my mind that you were so kind.
Uh,
To me and were laughing and talking to me about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a good spot to end.
yeah.